This mutation is called the Ascended, and it is being played on Chain of Ascension. We have two mutators active. We have Inspiration, and we have Transmutation. So, Inspiration is basically every time there's an enemy heroic unit around, it inspires the units around it, which does make it makes those other units a little bit more annoying. And there's Transmutation as well, which is probably one of the deadlier mutators in the game. So you have to be really careful when you engage enemy units, because if you do engage with small numbers of units and you end up losing those units, you can actually cause a unit to get a little bit stronger. The other thing to also note is that if you have Transmutation active and you lose a heroic unit to aim on, you will instantly spawn a I think it's a tier 8 or a tier 10 unit, which is basically a max tier unit, and this was either a hybrid dominator or a hybrid behemoth. The other thing to note also about Transmutation is if there's nothing around, this unit is given a move command towards your base, and therefore the unit will not stand in place. It'll actually walk towards your base and eat your face in the process. So you have to be a little bit careful when you are dealing with Transmutation. It is very, very nasty. So we have Swann and Raynor over here. One of the advantages that Raynor does get when he is playing with Swann is he has the access to these refineries and these Vespene harvesting drones. Now, the one mistake I did make over here, which I just realized as I'm casting this game right now, is what I could have done is I could have actually provided Raynor with tech reactors from Swann. So Swann can produce a tech reactor and give it to Raynor, and Raynor's buildings will operate in exactly the same way. So he'll be able to research tech upgrades, but at the same time also be able to produce units at the same time. But it's not really a big deal. It's not very impactful. But if you are looking for pretty much high caliber and perfect play, that is something you can also consider. So over here, the laser drill has come out and has started to aggro some of the units here. And because the laser drill has aggroed this unit, it's actually ended up aggroing Raynor's base here, but it is getting pulled back. Now, there is a Banshee here that has this, but there's a focus fire down here from Swann, and Swann does end up taking out this this first Banshee with the drill. And as you can see over here, Raynor has actually pre-built his base. Swann has not done so. So one of the things that you can do is delay your expansion a little bit on this mission to just make sure that you have some kind of army ready for the first hybrid spawn, because that spawn comes up a little bit early and it's in a fairly fortified position. So we have Banshee airstrike coming down and a killbot or a combat drop coming down here as well, and now these guys are going to start pushing towards base. There's a mule that is also over here. This mule has been dropped just to help repair these Banshees, just to make sure that none of these units get extra kills, unnecessary kills here. That Banshee will end up going down to the Stalker, and now out comes an Archon here. These combat drop is just going to be trying to move over here to try and clear this enemy base, and now there is a focus fire down. Unfortunately, that is the hybrid behemoth that came out from these Banshees, and now it's going to start eating away. The good thing is, because it's a hybrid behemoth and not a hybrid dominator, it's basically a very, very tanky hybrid more than anything. So we have a Hyperion that's been dropped here from Raynor, just an emergency thing. He has to use the Hyperion here because the hybrid behemoth is going to cause a lot of problems otherwise. But we have another bunch of Zealots now. There's a harass wave. Those Zealots will end up going down. Focus fire on the drill here for Swann. Swann has manually targeted the drill here. Does end up taking out the behemoth, and the Hyperion now is free to do other stuff. So yeah, Swann is taking a delayed expansion here, just focusing on getting some kind of army ready and getting his upgrades ready for dealing with the second attack wave on this mission. The second attack wave is a very, very strong attack wave, and it is unusually strong. It's, I think, a 4-4 or a 5-5 attack wave, which is something you'd normally expect to be, you'd expect that attack wave to be the 5th or the 6th attack wave in the mission, not the 2nd. So it's one of the scarier attack waves, and especially when you have the hybrid super pusher spawn here, you need to have some kind of army out, and this is why delaying the expansion, I find, has increased my win rate on the random queue. Now, I am playing with CTG, who is an incredibly talented player, one of the best co-op players that I have ever played with. And probably I could have gone for the greedier build and taken that expansion anyway, and it would have been fine, but I'm just playing how I would normally play on the random queue. I delay my expansion. As you can see, there are already two two Hercs over here. One of these Hercs is going to be used to intercept the attack wave, and they just get vision for the laser drill, where it already has its concentrated beam ready. So Herc comes in place. Unfortunately, now the attack wave over here is just there's the attack wave here, and the attack wave actually ends up splitting, so the concentrated beam does end up missing the ground forces. But taking out these air forces are a little bit more of the priority over here. The Zealots can't really do anything against the laser drill, so eventually those things will get picked off over here. And now we have the first set of battlecruisers coming up for Raynor, and there's a little bit of a micro here for Swann's siege tanks. Swann does end up clearing out those things over here, and there's a little bit of attack here on from Amon, but again, siege tanks are in location, and now there are actually 4 or 5 siege tanks inside that Herc, and that is more than enough to be able to deal with a ground composition. Fortunately, no air comps, but there should be enough from Raynor's battlecruisers to be able to handle that. And this is one of the advantages of having battlecruisers for Raynor when he has a Swann ally. Those Vespene harvesters can provide a lot of extra gas that can make that build very strong. And now the first hybrid pusher super pusher spawn has arrived, and Swann is going to be getting in position now for dealing with that. So there we go. Production-wise, we have the pulse cannon upgrade that's coming up for Raynor, for Swann, sorry, and that is again very important for there. And we have the Hyperion now that's come down. Now there's just going to be a little bit of micro. Swann does not really want to lose the siege tanks. One of the siege tanks is actually unsieged, but there we go. It's just a little bit of harass there for Swann onto that hybrid behemoth, just making sure that none of those siege tanks take unnecessary damage, because there are still no science vessels in the mix. Science vessels will be on the way in just a little bit of time, but just making sure that there's no unnecessary damage taken out onto those siege tanks. And we have basically very standard like production here. 2 battlecruisers coming out, and we have level 2 upgrades coming up for Swann as well. And now Raynor is going to use whatever's left of the Hyperion just to deal a little bit of damage and just soften that base up here while they just get their foothold in the game. The time now to the next spawn is there is a little bit of time, so both the players do have a sufficient amount of time to get an army up and running. And now Raynor is just going to go and try and engage that Slain Elemental. A bunch of Yamato cannons do end up going down on this. Slain Elemental is a little bit of annoying, so it does end up cocooning these battlecruisers, but that is now okay. And now we'll be up for round 2 of attacking the Slain Elemental. Again, another bunch of Yamato cannons come down here, and down goes that Slain Elemental. And over here, Swann is basically just powering up. That Herc is pretty much filled up now with siege tanks, and that'll be able to handle the ground comp here. And now they have another bunch of battlecruisers to move in here and weaken this enemy base in preparation for the next spawn. We have a bunch of Zealots now that are pushing Janara forward. Unfortunately, I think Swann's Herc is out of position here. Swann actually initially sent that Herc to help the battlecruisers clear up this place, but now he ends up deleting that bunch of Zealots here. And now we have a bunch of science vessels as well in the mix. So the enemy comp here is the Skytos carrier build. So the next part now of Swann's composition is getting these Goliaths out. And again, for the most part, you are dealing with Swann will be dealing with the attack waves with concentrated beam. So having Goliaths in the early stages of the game is not that critical, especially when he's backed up by Raynor's battlecruisers. So this is why the Goliaths are not out that early. And you can see over here the benefit of the Vespene harvesters there. Raynor already has a very good number of battlecruisers here. He has 10 battlecruisers out, lots of Yamato cannons, giving Amon a taste of his own medicine, and essentially this area is going to be cleared. Another Banshee airstrike comes down just to weaken the ground forces here. And again, Swann decides to go and help, drops the siege tanks on the back line there. Again, there's a little bit of kiting that is required because these Immortals have no viable targets, so all these ground forces are going to aggro the siege tanks, so there's a little bit of micro that's required to make sure that the siege tanks don't take unnecessary damage on these units and further proc transmutation. So you have to be a little bit careful when you're playing that. There's another attack wave here, but Raynor intercepted with his Hyperion. And now the Hyperion will probably be tactical jumped somewhere to help with that. It's a Hybrid Dominator here as well. Again, Hybrid Dominator casts a Plasma Blast onto that siege tank. And unfortunately there was no micro there on that siege tank to help. But yeah, battlecruisers with the big Mama battlecruiser is now here and they will be clearing up this attack wave and this enemy base here. And this area will be essentially cleaned up in advance, and the next hybrid spawn is actually on this area here, so that is also kind of interesting. But yeah, Swann is basically ramping up here with his army, and Raynor as well has a very healthy number of battlecruisers. He's at 15 battlecruisers right now, which is more than enough. The storm goes down these battlecruisers, but again, these things are really tanky, really strong, and this enemy base has essentially been completely cleared up. Lots of Yamato cannons coming down, and all is good on the western front here, or the eastern front, or the southern front for that matter. Battlecruisers now are going to be moving into this side, and now the next hybrid super pusher spawn has come. Tactical jump here, and Swann also tactical jumps his Herc, and again, there's going to be a little bit of micro here, just to make sure, drawing the aggro of these hybrids, and then just pulling back up, and the hybrid ends up walking around feeling silly, not being able to hit anything. That is why it's very important. There's an attack wave here that has come up onto these on these Goliaths, but these Goliaths have been able to handle that attack wave. That was a harass wave actually. There's a scan here that comes out, and it does end up taking out the swarm host. You want to be really careful with swarm hosts as well. Transmutation can basically wreck you with swarm hosts, because I believe the locust can also transmutate, which is or transmute, which is again something that is not very good. So make sure you clear those swarm hosts as quickly as possible. Battlecruisers now, all ready and good to go. They're at level 2 attack upgrades right now, same as Swann's army, level 2 attack upgrades, and now they will be pushing Jannar forward a little bit, and Raynor is going to start pushing forward into this enemy base here. Again, Swann uses the siege tanks, tactical jump in, micros back, pulls the siege tanks back out, just to make sure they do not get hit by those zealots and by those immortals. And you can see how quickly these siege tanks can actually shred the ground forces here.
Upgrade complete.
And yeah, the siege tanks now get dropped here just to get a little bit of healing from the science vessels. Again, very careful positioning required. These zealots do have charge, so you have to be a little bit careful that they do not end up catching out one of these siege tanks like that and transmuting into higher tech units. So overall, relatively good. And last siege tank gets reconstructed and is good to go, sieged up. And now Raynor's army is going to be moving forward and cleaning up whatever's left of this enemy base here. Hyperion is now ready in cooldown, and now we also have a concentrated beam that's ready to deal with the next attack wave in the mission. And yeah, more or less all okay. I think he's going to be going for the Slain Elemental here, which is again a little bit tricky. Battlecruisers are a little bit slow, which can be kind of annoying when you were dealing with the Slain Elemental, because it likes to cast abilities like that. Catches out a large number of these Battlecruisers here, but I think that'll be okay. There is an attack wave that has spawned on this site, and I think the Herc will be getting in position now to deal with that wave as soon as the Goliaths get out of the Slain Elemental. The Slain Elemental goes down, Battlecruiser's tactical jump, and we have a concentrated beam comes out, ends up deleting the rest of this attack wave here. Again, I tend to use the concentrated beam to clear. I have seen CDG use the concentrated beam to end up clearing out these enemy bases by casting beams like in very parallel lines. Both are fine. I like to use the concentrated beam to clear the attack waves, because most of the time my ally really does not handle the attack waves. But again, I am playing with CDG, makes life significantly easier when you have a really good co-op ally. Both enemy forces decide to engage this side. Goliath's on the back line now, taking out the carriers, focusing down these carriers here, and there's a few disabling abilities that end up going down here, but that is all okay. Carriers that end up going down at the end, and now there's one last hybrid on this side that needs to be cleaned up. Lots of oracles over here, which is a little bit of a problem, but there are a lot of Goliaths now as well. They can end up clearing out these oracles. Oracles get cleared up very quickly. Hybrid Dominator on the backline does end up going down, and one last carrier gets focus fired down by an infinite number of battlecruisers. And that is the end of that hybrid super pusher spawn. Now, both allied forces are very strong. Few Goliaths here for Swann, and again, the Goliath count is not really too big of an issue over here. It's a trap, and yeah, Raynor is gonna go and basically clear out this enemy base, because there are so many battlecruisers over here. 25 battlecruisers, just an insane number. You see those things coming your way, and you basically just wave the white flag, because there's nothing you can do about it. And that one poor Colossus, not able to shoot air. just end up getting deleted by these battlecruisers, and that is the enemy base. I think that is the entire map all cleared. One of the things that does happen if you all clear the map is the attack waves will start spawning from the central area, this area here. The harass waves will still spawn from the side, but the attack waves will spawn from this side here. Both the attack waves that will go both sides will start spawning from the middle, which also makes it a little bit easier if you want to try and intercept it. Battlecruisers are now in position. There's the Goliath here to push Janara forward, and now the hybrids will spawn over here. So let's see what happens now. We have a pulse cannon comes down here, and I think another concentrated beam also gets gassed. Does end up clearing out a large number of units here, leaving the hybrids free for Raynor to just rain absolute hell down on. Lots of Yamato cannons and lots of battlecruisers on here. Focus fire down onto that hybrid behemoth, and that hybrid behemoth is having a very bad day. And that is pretty much the end of the mission. There's our army over there, just flexing now on Janara, flexing on Amon. And that is pretty much it. And that is GG.